Now, when we talk about indetermination in quantum mechanics, this raises some interesting implications. It might just be that what we are seeing here is the result of something of a greater computational sophistication than our ability to be aware of it. When we're talking about epistemology and its limitations, we can boil it down to what are called laws of logic. Some people figure that these laws of logic are the result of an actuality that transcends material reality, and essentially it's our connection with the divine. I believe that for a long time. I'm not so sure anymore. You see, the laws of logic, and I'll relate this all back to the cellular automata and computational equivalence here in a second. But the whole point to the laws of logic is that it may simply be an artifact of a limitation of our ability to know. Our ability to know is ultimately linguistic, is it not? If you were to say, I'm an atheist, it's not because you have non-linguistic arguments for the non-existence of God, or something like that. If you do, and you try to tease it apart, you can run into a lot of trouble. I had a New Age friend for a while that, I killed him. No. I had a New Age friend, I don't know where he is anymore. But he claimed that he knew the truth when he heard it because he would get chills up and down his spine. Okay, that's perhaps a non-linguistic way of coming to knowledge. But it presents a problem, does it not? The most robust knowledge that we've come to, and certainly the knowledge that has sent people to the moon and cured smallpox, all this kind of thing, is in its essence linguistic, even if it's mathematic. It's just another kind of language. It's linguistic. But if there is a limitation to what is meaningful to the human being, meaning if we can only observe patterns and order in things that are of a particular computational sophistication or less, then that's going to imply certain laws of communication. Meaning we cannot communicate in ways that say X and not X. Meaning something like, it is raining and not raining on the city. Well, perhaps it is, but if it really is, and we're not, say, being sneaky and implying two different predicates here, and two different subjects, like it's raining on the north side and not on the south side of the city, but really implying just one subject, one predicate, it is raining and not raining on the city, we can't know it. Because the meaning is lost for us. Our ability to see patterns and to see meaning and to see order is lost with things that we call contradictory. Suppose that we were to meet another race that is capable of deliberation and philosophizing and these sorts of things. And their ability to observe is also the result of a kind of cellular automata, meaning it has an implied computational sophistication. Say also that their computational sophistication is greater than ours. They might look at a few of these cellular automata that we would see and see as perfectly random or apparently random. They might see a pattern. That's the mind-boggling thing about all this. They might see a pattern if their ability to be aware, or rather their ability to observe, is of a different, namely a higher level of computational sophistication. So when people go on about laws of logic, this is not necessarily evidence for a transcendental plane of existence, or even an umbilical cord to God. I think I've even claimed something similar like this before in the past. I know I've mentioned the umbilical cord thing. Rather, what we have here is an artifact of the limitation of human epistemology. And that limitation might be the result of something called computational equivalence, meaning that our ability to observe patterns is the result of a determined process that is computationally limited. And that if we are observing something that is the result of something computationally more sophisticated, that is, have more rules or different rules in some way, then perhaps our inability to understand it is just a matter of that. It's just a matter of, it's an artifact of our inability to know. But in no way does it preclude the possibility of that existing. I mean, even at the quantum level, when we say things like, look how it's all indeterminate, can we be certain? Well, okay, no, pardon that. never mind the certainty. But do we have even good reason to suppose anymore that we should believe that? If what we are observing at the quantum level is of a computational sophistication greater than our ability to observe it, well, then we might not be able, it might actually be a completely determinate thing, but we'll never know it. I guess if we could never know it, but that's really the way it is reason enough to assume that it is an indeterminate basis. But for those of us who really like to tackle the issue in perhaps not the most pragmatic way, but in the most truthful way, which I think is what the philosopher does, we have to acknowledge at least the possibility that, well, maybe it's more simple than that. The whole idea of parsimony is really violated when you start talking about indeterminism. I, for one, am pretty much a hard determinist, which just sounds strange because you also know that I'm a theist. Essentially, I would suppose, well, that's for a different video, but it would suppose that everything is determined by absolute laws, similar to how a computer program runs. And when people say, especially people like Piro, and I never heard back from him, when I bring up things like computational equivalence, they just kind of, their eyes gloss over. So this was a longer video, and I thank you for sitting through the whole thing. But it's something that it fascinates me, to use my Dawkins impersonation. That wasn't very good that time, was it? Never mind. But computational equivalence, fascinating stuff. No longer should we think of the observer as something omnipotent or something omniscient or omnipresent or anything like that. And we seem to, at some level. You know, let us try to understand the limitation of human knowledge and then give a reason to that limitation. Why is it limited? You're not going to find it in the brain because it's just another brain, presumably, looking at that brain trying to figure it out. You have to approach this philosophically. Computational equivalence, computational sophistication, relative computational sophistication, and that the rules of logic are an artifact of our computational sophistication to be aware and to observe patterns. Okay, thank you.